In this episode, we're diving into Fleetwood Mac's Tango in the Night, the glossy late 80s comeback that gave us huge hits like Big Love, Little Lies, and Everywhere. But behind all the hits was a band barely holding it together, with personal tension, studio perfectionism, and one of their most complicated chapters. It's smooth, stylish, and full of drama. Exactly what you'd expect from Fleetwood Mac. Stay with us.
Get ready for the 3324 podcast, where lifelong friends Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber share their love of all things music and movies. Dean has directed short films and is a music trivia buff. And Eric, trained in audio engineering, brings his extensive knowledge of music and film to the conversation as they discuss, debate, and celebrate their favorite albums, films, and much more.
Welcome, friends, to the 3324 podcast. If you grew up on car radios, cassette decks, and unforgettable films, welcome here. This is your place. You found your home. Welcome aboard.
Absolutely. We got to stop meeting like this. All right.
Why stop now?
No, there is no
stopping. You were just starting to get interesting. What movie is that from? It's from some movie that lies like, oh, just when you were just starting to get interesting.
Oh God.
Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
That's Crusade.
Yeah. Right.
Just starting to get interesting.
I had a milkshake.
Or a paraphrasing of that great line. So. If you're new here, welcome aboard. Yeah, you're in season 6 of the 3324 podcast. Eric and I built this city on rock and roll, and we get by with the help of our friends. We have a great cast of guests that come in and out and help us out, and we love and adore each and every one of them. But then sometimes we got to padlock the building.
Yeah,
shut the lights so just Eric and I can kind of, we put the closed sign up, but we're actually still open.
That's right.
And we just kind of turn the mics on and do one ourselves. And anytime it's Fleetwood Mac, for the most part, we're gonna do those ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
Because these are ones that we lived. These are lived ones.
Absolutely. And we, I don't think we've shared any of Fleetwood Mac with anyone else, have we? No. No, it's always been.
I think
like
we really only have, if we're talking about the classic era of Fleetwood Mac that we love, there's really only 2 albums left. Is their first album called the White Album, Fleetwood Mac, and then the Dance. And I could see maybe bringing someone in for the Dance because that was just kind of post pop, like kind of reform. It was kind of like doing Eagles, Hell Freezes Over type thing,
Right. This was their last major studio effort.
Of the classic 5.
Of the classic 5. They would release, the Dance, and then after that would be Say You Will with original material, but it wasn't meant for Fleetwood Mac necessarily. It was sort of cobbled together as a, But I dare say I love that record. But we can. That's another discussion for another time.
Yeah. I mean, we'll probably do it, but as far as the classic era and the stuff Eric and I were listening to when it was fresh material, like this was, we were knee deep in it at this point in '87. Let's go through the stats, and then we can kind of set the Wayback Machine and maybe set some of the backdrop for Tango in the Night, which very interesting. I was reading a lot of user reviews. If you go to All Music, they have people that write the reviews. I'm not tipping my hand because I'm not saying one way or the other, but a lot of people love this album, fondly remember and love this album.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So let's get into the stats because there's a very interesting stat associated with that as well. This was released in April of 1987, so that makes it 10 years out of Rumors, right? 10 years away from like their biggest success would come their final, would be literally their swan song album. They didn't know it at the time, but it would be that. Produced by Lindsey Buckingham and Richard Dashit. There's a story there as well, which we'll get into. There were 4 singles released on this album. Big Love was the first one. Hit number 5. 7 Wonders hit number 19. It should have hit number 7. Little Lies hit number 4. Everywhere hit number 14. It went to number 7 on Billboard. Okay, not to the expectations of a Fleetwood Mac album, I would say. The interesting thing is it went 3 times platinum.
Yeah.
So that's over 3 million copies, which makes it the second highest selling Fleetwood Mac album behind Rumors. This is the second biggest album from Fleetwood Mac behind Rumors. What do you think about that one? Hard to wrap your mind around, right?
Right. Given the fact that, well, we'll get to it, but it's just so different, so of its time. But yeah, it's just an odd one for sure. And I'm really surprised about the stat on Everywhere, because a lot of people seem to really take that song and that seems to be the most popular track that people seem to really love.
No, I think Little Lies also.
Little Lies for me is the nostalgic song, especially now. I mean, even then it felt like had that quality to it, but it just, but I feel like there's a lot of people that, both young and old, who just have the same reaction to the song. It's just such a happy song that I'm going to say it. I was never really a big fan of the track because it's just a little too happy for my taste. It's
very saccharine.
It's very borderline. Yeah, exactly.
Very sugary.
Right.
But that's right. I mean, we'll talk about but that's Christine.
Yeah,
that's what she brings. She brought the same kind of feeling on Mirage.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, that really became her wheelhouse, was that kind of stuff. And that really is she's kind of like the stabilizing force on all of the Fleetwood Mac albums because of that, because she developed into a songwriter and understood her toolkit and was able to write for it or partner with people to co-write for it.
Mm-hmm.
You get, Everywhere, Little Lies, Mystified. You get that kind of those songs all have a feel to them.
Mm-hmm.
That's very Christine. and I don't mean that in a bad way. Like, she provides that sugary, sweet, longing, loving. She always writes those heart on her sleeve ballads, in those songs, and that's what's so great about her. And that's what's so great about Fleetwood Mac. And maybe that's what's so interesting about this album, is they really were, you want to talk about divergent paths at this point. So let's set the scene for 1987, because we were, we were in the middle of a whole bunch of other stuff that was going on around this, so if we pick up where we left off on Mirage, on our Mirage episode, we had already seen the ascension of Stevie Nicks. Right, Belladonna had already come out, her first solo album. So she was already kind of establishing planting her flag as a solo career. And Lindsey Buckingham's Law and Order had come out, to a lesser extent, really quirky, strange, fantastic album. But just kind of you see where the things are going. So then after Mirage, we would get a whole other, Stevie Nicks, between Mirage and Tango in the Night, would release 2 solo albums.
Yeah.
Right,
Wild
Rock
Heart,
a Little, and
Wild Heart.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Christine McVie would release 1 solo album, which was very much in the Christine McVie style. Then the interesting part, which makes Tango so intriguing, is Lindsey Buckingham in 1984 would release Go Insane, which is highly experimental. I mean, maybe today people might listen to it and be like, wow, this is really progressive, and kind of, critics understood Go Insane. It my mother actually really liked Slow Dancing. She loved that
track.
Song. My mother loved that. I'm like, wait, you're listening to the music I listen to now? Like, you can't, no. Like, you already did that with Dennis DeYoung and Desert Moon. You already co-opted that from me. Now you're going to listen to like the quirkiest, weirdest, dare say at the time, artist, Lindsey Buckingham. You're going to take Slow Dancing from me. Anyway, he got into the Fairlight computer, right? Which was a way of making music and sampling. And again, it's inspired by, when I listen to Go Insane, I hear all the stuff that I would hear years later on Smile. All that experimental stuff is there.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone was kind of carving their lane out. Stevie Nicks was becoming this, the twirling, swirling lace character with the top hat. Yeah. Christine was going on her way, making just solid music. And then Lindsey was really kind of pushing the boundaries of music. And that's the way it was going to go from what I read. Lindsey was in 85, Lindsey was preparing another solo album. He's like, okay, I'm going to start going again, and then all of a sudden Fleetwood, I guess, was having some financial problems or whatever. And like, let's, as it happens with Lindsey Buckingham, it's like, let's start a new Fleetwood Mac project. It's like, okay, well, I'll just take the stuff I was working on and, here you go. It's already pretty much done.
The man he never stopped creating. He was
he always had stuff in the chamber.
Yeah. Always raring to go. It would have been interesting to have heard firsthand. And I guess some of the outtakes might've been part of that, but it's just like, what that album would have been.
Yes.
Would be really interesting, because I know there was a lot of tracks that floated out there that appeared on soundtracks and things like that. Was that part of that process that at that time, the writing? But
I think it's a good thing that this happened to them, to him.
Yeah,
because Go Insane was so experimental. I think to follow up with another solo album right after that would be maybe where you're going with it. And I think putting the stuff into the Fleetwood Mac Play-Doh mold and pushing it out kind of forces you to, he takes so many chances, but it also kind of forces him to kind of refine it a little more. So they decide they're going to make an album. They actually first started working with Nile Rodgers as producer.
Yeah, I heard that.
That didn't work.
That did not work.
That didn't work. And then they got Jason Corsaro, who worked on the Power Station album. He's a big arranger and engineer. That didn't work. Also, I'm reading as I'm reading this and researching it. I'm like, Lindsey Buckingham and Richard Dashut and essentially Fleetwood Mac have produced their own albums. Why would you try and do anything different? Because at that point, I don't think Lindsey is going to cede any ground over to a producer.
No,
because he's so good at what he does. He knows how to produce Fleetwood Mac. So why, to get like Nile Rodgers, that would be a good get. But I just don't see anybody penetrating the Fleetwood Mac circus bubble and kind of doing it.
No, not the Fleetwood Mac, just Lindsey Buckingham. I mean, he's got his own wall, like concrete wall around him.
Just the crazy. Nile Rodgers as a producer, you're going to have to manage these personalities. There's no one better to manage the personalities than the five of them, because they kind of know.
Sure.
For an outsider to come in after 10, over 12 years since they joined, would be weird. I thought it was so strange when I read all this. I'm like, I just naturally assumed, Buckingham's just going to take get behind the console, because that's what he does. He produces, but he sweetens and creates and experiments and does all that stuff.
And he did ultimately. That's what happened. So he wins the day, and thank God. Yeah, you're right, because it's I don't think that he gets. Critics love him for that, I suppose, but I don't think people. Everybody's like Stevie Nicks crazy, and she's the star of the show, as we pointed out several times. Lindsey never seems to get much of the credit, or at least not that back then. I don't know.
Yeah, back then he was clawing for every accolade he could get.
But nowadays, you read things on Reddit, reaction. People think he's an absolute genius at this point. They're going back and listening to this stuff, and they're saying, now we get it. Because, I think young people today are just so much more smarter. They're coming out of some kind of
I don't know.
Appreciate. I don't know what it is, but it just seems.
I'm going to be grumpy old man. We used to have to research and find books and look for knowledge. Now
absolutely, but there is a level of appreciation for. I would say maybe I'll go back and they'll say I think young people have a much bigger, like a much broader mind, open mind.
Sure, let's
leave it there. So they could listen to something like this and say, "Wow." Whereas, for my taste, it was a little jarring to hear such slick, lots of keyboards, lots of synth on this record, lots of, it was so different. And so like, and it was easy for me, back then listening to it because it was brand new. We just ate it up. We, like we did everything else. But after a while, you kind of, get a little tired. And then, of course, the airplay over the years. And so I've not really been too kind.
Yeah, I know.
Towards this record in sort of the intervening years between, before this. But revisiting it, going back, especially listening to the deluxe version with all the extra tracks and stuff like that, and some of the songs that I had heard back then, because they were all like, most of them were B-sides. There was a number of songs that were complete. They weren't just outtakes. They weren't just demos, things like that. Which I really liked. I mean, it's like, why isn't this on the record? Why isn't that on the record? That kind of thing. So
I have a couple of songs I could roll off that could have fit on there. I think what we need to think about, which we weren't thinking about at the time. Again, we were, our friend Johnny was so into Stevie Nicks, and I was so into Lindsey Buckingham because I was into, again, he was like the American Jeff Lynne of just multi-instrumentalist and deep production techniques and experimentation. So I think what we didn't realize at the time, that from 82 when Mirage came out to 87, music had really changed. 82 was the early 80s. So that whole DX7 revolution hadn't happened yet, right? That really kind of late 80s production style hadn't really taken hold. So when I listen to this album now, I'm like, I have to actually kind of give them some points for really taking the Fleetwood Mac sound and just updating it. Yeah. With that. And then because you had always said it and I had always said it, how this, when you put this record on, it's so glossy that the needle almost would just skip across it.
Yeah.
But then when I started to notice, upon a deeper listen, I really noticed that the Lindsey Buckingham stuff was less glossy than the stuff he produced for Stevie and Christine.
You're right.
And I think that's also because his stuff was largely done already by himself. It was just sweetened with whatever they needed. So that might have even had a different production value to it.
Yeah.
And then bringing it, and then the new stuff and then we need to talk about Stevie Nicks in this too, because there's, she casts a shadow on this album, and he had to do a lot of fixing and stitching and Frankensteining things to do this. So I think the production might also be a function of that.
Yeah, it is. And I've always said that only Lindsey could make Stevie sound as good, but in this case, it was a struggle.
Yeah.
Her vocals at this point were shot. She was just,
go beyond shot.
They whatever it was. I mean, she was, cocaine, severely addicted to cocaine at this point. Drinking. And it's almost unsalvageable. Like, but it does give the album, in my opinion, in an otherwise very meticulous, almost sterile, almost too perfect. It does give the album a little bit of life. As bad as her vocals are on the record, at least there is that. Would you?
Better, okay. I'll agree with you. I'll say for better or for worse.
For better or for worse.
I agree with you, but for better or for worse. Yes.
Now, here's a question for you. Like, if you were to, if somebody were to listen to this record and never have heard, that didn't know it was Fleetwood Mac, could you make the case that this sounds like AI? Is it that perfect? Is the production on this album that perfect?
There's a difference between production being really sharp, right? I mean, you could do that. You could say that for Gaucho by Steely Dan then too, where it almost sounds too perfect. I think it's because if you take a song like Family Man, and it's got that flamenco guitar that he's playing on it, like there's still life in there, it just sounds to the nth degree. Christine's songs have a real softness to them. All of the all of the vocals, backing vocals sound kind of puffy and cloud, like they're on little clouds. I think it's just more because there's definitely Christine breathes life into her songs. When you hear her sing "Mystified," it's very breathy. The vocals very playful. So it might be a hokey song, but it's animated. There's a real she has that kind of that playful vocal styling on that one. And then Isn't It Midnight is kind of a little bit harder edged. And so I think there's enough variation in there to say, well, on the surface, you could, but I think if you just pulled songs out separately, if you pulled out Isn't It Midnight and played that, like, oh, okay, this is kind of like
it does require a deeper dive.
Yes,
for sure.
Yes.
If you take it at face value and say, yeah, this album is very slick and very, and somewhat, if you're used to the gritty Fleetwood Mac of the 70s and,
or the warmth of Tusk.
If you listen to this, and it was so off-putting, but take a deeper dive. And like you say, there, I was just throwing that question out there.
Yeah, sure,
I don't necessarily think that's true either, but but the one thing that what I don't like is the technique they used about recording a lot of this in half speed.
Yeah, that was a big
and speeding it up. And that's what I don't like about Christine's vocals on this record, because they're too high. That is not her natural voice. It's slightly sped up. It's slightly higher. And it's a little, that's what gives it that sort of, that sweet, sacchary feel to me. That's what's a little bit off-putting for me, because it's not really, it's doctored. You know what I mean? It feels,
it's doctored but it's not doctored in an auto-tune way.
No,
and it's not doctored in a pitch-corrected way. It's doctored in an experimental way, because Lindsey talked it. He goes, I wanted to do this because when you record stuff at half speed, and then when you kind of torque it up, you get all these different harmonic frequencies that you wouldn't get playing it at the speed you wanted it at. So for me, and that's what was so interesting about his work on this album, is that he took the lessons from Go Insane and then was applying it to pop production. It wasn't like, oh, I'm just going to make all kinds of weird, crazy shit. It's like, let's take a Christine song, let's take a Christine song and see if we can apply
a very simple
some of this to it.
Yeah, mind you, a very simple.
Some of these formulas. Let's try and apply some of these formulas to it and see what we get. So you get something that kind of sounds a little otherworldly from her, right? In that case, So I kind of dig that roll of the dice. Nowadays, it will be auto-tune and pitch corrected, which is different. This is, you're literally playing, and they said, I read someone was like, the song ends up being 10 minutes. And then we have to sit and listen to that. Where we want to go. But that's, to me, that's music creation. That's you're not using a computer to do that. You actually have to. And he said, I would have to play this stuff slowly.
Yeah.
And that to me, that's music craftsmanship, right? To do that, to not just say, oh, we're sing it, and then we'll have the thing slow it up, and then from there we can kind of whiz it up again. This was them having to do it manually, which to me is kind of like a little, that's craftsmanship. It's like, we're going to try and make something. And the only way to make it is to do it this way. Nowadays, yes, I would be like, you put a plug in on it and you get it. It's like, okay, you really didn't do anything. Back then it was kind of like, this was the only way we knew how to do it. So I get where you're coming from. But I got to appreciate the effort, right? And the craftsmanship that is gone from that now, because nowadays you don't need it. So let's get back to Stevie really quick, because she was touring with, like, I think Tom Petty and Bob Dylan, or she'd done, a lot of live touring. So she was already road weary. She was having, drug issues, drinking. So she went into Betty Ford to try and get cleaned up. Mick Fleetwood said he was doing more cocaine then than he was in the 70s. He said he was doing more cocaine during 87 than he was in the 70s during Rumors.
Yeah.
So he was in bad shape. So much so that, they were recording at Lindsey Buckingham's house. So Lindsey got to put a trailer out in his front yard for Mick to live in. John McVie hadn't played bass since Fleetwood Mac came off their tour in 83. He wasn't sure if he could even play bass again. So he said, you know what I need to do? Because all he was doing is sailing. He loves to sail. So he was just sailing around the world. He's like, I need to dry out. By dry out meaning stop drinking. He goes, I need to stop drinking so I can really give my all to this. Well, that didn't work for him. Drying out was not an option for John McVie.
Because he went cold turkey.
Yeah, he went cold. So it just was, all this baggage is coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Stevie Nicks really, she has 3 songs on the album and she really only wrote 2. She gets co-credit for 7 Wonders because she literally changed 1 word in 7 Wonders. And Sandy Stewart, who wrote it, said, okay, I'll give you you're Stevie, you're my friend. Here's a piece of it.
Yeah.
She only recorded at Lindsey's house for like 2 weeks. And then Lindsey said a lot
barely
of stuff.
there.
And he said a lot of times after she left, we had to erase it. It just wasn't there. And I had to take pieces, from takes, which the Eagles were really famous for doing. Take a phrase here and a phrase here from another take and create some of these performances for her. But
I was there. I had seen that.
You were there at Lindsey's house?
No, I was there. We had seen Stevie on the Rock a Little tour, and she was wow. I mean, just horror. I mean, she would go off and just. I can understand that she had to have been doing that kind of stuff in the studio, just like ad-libbing extra lines and like it just
trying to make something happen.
Right. And it was the worst, one of the worst performances I had ever seen of her or any concert period. But it was sad. You knew there was something off. There was something wrong. We were kind of naive to the scene at the time. We we love these people. They're not, they don't do that.
Water.
They walk on water. They don't do that kind of shit, right? Yeah, no, but bullshit.
She was in real, and Lindsey Buckingham was no angel as well. All these guys were doing coke through the 80s. It just never reared its ugly head for him publicly. Like that, because he didn't really tour, because no one, there wasn't a demand to see Lindsey Buckingham on his own at that point. It pains me to say, here's the good bit. Let's put a good spin on this before we get into Stevie Nicks. She would get her redemption arc. That's the good news. The dance was Stevie Nicks' redemption arc.
Yeah. For sure.
So let's kind of lay that groundwork. She, on the I'm not go listen to all of the other episodes. I'm not a huge fan of hers, but on the dance, she came back. Her voice was strong, confident, in control. Like all the things that I never liked about her voice during this time, she had done whatever she needed to do it. So the good news wasn't here. The good news would come on the dance. So she does get a redemption. But on this album, she's shrill. She's out of control. You can't even sometimes make out her lyrics because she's just trying to sing so fast. Like you said, trying to kind of really vamp it and just kind of, and you don't know what she's saying. I can't listen to,
When I See You Again.
When I See You Again. It's just hard. It's hard in an uncomfortable way.
It's hard.
I don't see joy out of like saying that this is really horrible.
It would have been a beautiful song. I mean, much like like Beautiful Child off of Tusk.
Dude, you hit it right on the head. It was that, and it absolutely was that. Could have been.
Lindsey actually, I always often fast forward the track to the end because Lindsey comes in with that great vocal and that little guitar bit at the end. And I love that. I love, apparently I guess it was supposed to be a duet, or he was supposed to, those vocals were there, but her on top of it and it would have him harmonizing. And it just, he had to cut her vocals out of it. And it's just, but it's a beautiful ending to an otherwise heartbreaking performance, and
that was supposed to be the last cut on the album. They're like, we can't, this is just too, it's just too depressing.
Right.
It's too much. So and then the other song she wrote, "Welcome to the Room, Sarah." So it's kind of like gimmicky. Is this a
very lackluster
continuation of Sarah?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's about her going to rehab.
Going to Betty Ford. Yeah. And
yeah,
she checked in under the name Sarah Morgan, I think, or Sarah
Anderson,
something like
Sarah Anderson.
Okay.
And her lyric writing has always been kind of free form, kind of word association thing. But the on this album that it's really out there. It's really reaching. Like sometimes sometimes she's got some, like I said, like her stuff on Tusk is sublime. It's magnificent.
It's the best.
Yeah, it's absolutely in the zone. And so then to hear her kind of these songs, I feel like they're cobbled together. And then she has someone write the biggest hit, Seven Wonders. So she showed up for a couple weeks, put in, and she said, I was drinking during the sessions. She goes, I was sitting there with brandy in Lindsey's bedroom. That's where they have the mics. She goes, I'm sitting there, I'm drinking brandy and I'm singing. She even, it's kind of, and she goes, that's no way to,
we're not
going to be successful that way.
She wasn't terribly upset when she did find out that they had to, and she goes, I don't blame you because they were hard,
Yeah. So as harsh as we're being, they all kind of understood it. And I don't know if we're going to break any news here, but it's not Stevie Nicks on Big Love. It's Lindsey, both the male and the quote unquote female.
Of course. We knew. Yeah, we knew that.
Tim and Lindsey, and they're like, they together. They
Oh, he was a horny stag on this record, man. That sexual energy that he exudes on this album is just
and for Big Love to be the first single. I even back then I was like, I loved it because I'm like, why not? But I was also able to kind of remove myself from that and say, well, this is not going to be a huge hit.
Right.
Because it's so Lindsey. But you know what? It hit number 5. So it was kind of quirky. It probably hit number 5 and people probably said, okay, it's like, because it's typical quirky Lindsey Buckingham. He was working on speeding up and doing, childlike or sped up vocals. So it's kind of like, panning from left to right with stuff. I mean, all the tricks from Go Insane were here, but Big Love is probably one of the most curious singles to come out, and one of the most curious Fleetwood Mac singles, and then one of the most curious lead singles that usually that would be the last one. Like, okay, that's not, you want to fire the cannon with the biggest round first.
When was the first time you heard it? Did we bought? I remember I bought the 45.
I remember watching it on MTV. I remember they had the Fleetwood Mac Attack weekend on MTV, and they were premiering the video. And I think that might have been. I think it might have been there because that was again MTV was like breaking stuff even before the radio, right? They would get the video, and they would do a whole weekend's worth of program around it. I'm pretty sure it was the video first, and that doesn't help either for somebody because that video is just one of the worst videos as well. Like all the other videos are really cool. This one is just freaking weird. Just not anything. That
it does harken back to Go Insane for sure. If you see the video, the video for the song Go Insane, it's bizarre.
Yeah, and the whole last 30 seconds of the Big Love video is the whole video in reverse.
Yeah,
they're reversing the whole thing back to the very beginning. So it's just like, okay.
And they did 5. I think it was 5 videos off of this album. I'm pretty sure.
4. 5?
Was it?
Maybe Mystified might have been. There might have been something from Mystified also.
Yeah, 7 Wonders. They did Everywhere.
7 Wonders, Little Lies, and Everywhere.
Okay.
I know all the singles.
No video for Tango, huh?
No.
Okay.
No, Tango's. I'm glad you bring that up. I was reading recently where Lindsey said he was trying to harken back to "I'm So Afraid." He wanted something as bombastic as when they would do "I'm So Afraid" live, where it would just be that scorching end piece. Because I wanted to get something like that on record and kind of recreate that. And again, that's what makes Fleetwood Mac so interesting is he just brings every time he comes to an album, it's just different stuff.
Yeah.
So you got this weird Big Love pseudo sexual thing, his song Caroline, which has kind of like a Middle Eastern flavor to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. And then,
people even somebody even compared it to like Gabriel, like just sort of that really kind of like chanting kind of thing, the world beat kind of
like the world thing,
percussion in it. Yeah. But man, that guitar line is phenomenal. That riff, that like he's just, and he does that thing with the thumb, and he's playing. It almost sounds like a bass line at the same time. So it's just it's great.
Yeah, and then he goes into Tango in the Night. So that's just kind of a bombastic. It's very sedate, and then just kind of shifts gears pretty abruptly, right? Then he gives us Family Man, which I love. Again, just quirk. Now instead of doing
that's another odd track though. Like what's that about? Like it's. I remember first hearing that because when the album came out, the release day, they were playing it in Sam Goody. I went downstairs. We were working at Suncoast, and I went downstairs to get it. No, it couldn't have been Suncoast.
That was before. That was way
before. But we were at Sam Goody, and Family Man was playing at the time, and I'm like, oh man. When that guitar, that little flamenco guitar, I'm like, this is okay. This is already my favorite track off this.
And then he did like the high pitched woman's voice in Big Love. Now he does the low pitched, Family Man.
Yeah,
again, he just kind of populates his songs with just so much interesting things to listen to.
Now, is that Stevie in the middle?
No, she's not.
But I am.
No, that's him.
It makes it sound like her, though, doesn't it?
That's him. Oh no, she is she does have back. Actually, I take that back. This was one of his demos. So he's lead backing vocals, guitar, bass, and keyboards, and then Mick and then Stevie gets backing vocals credit. But I'm not sure that's her. I think that's her when he sings Family Man, like I am what I am, a family man, like that.
Yeah.
I think all that weird sped up stuff is him.
But he makes himself sound like Stevie. It's like, why is Stevie on this song like that? Like what? That's this weird sort of like. Is that in the place of like what you would think would be a guitar solo, or it's just this weird like vocal thing?
Yeah, and it's progressively getting slower. It starts out sped up and it gets slower and slower. I am what I am. I am what I am. It gets slower and slower.
And it's just like it feels like it's dropping into water, So,
exactly. It's kind of like it gets all kind of elongated and weird. And then his last song is You and I Part 2, which actually is a co-write. He's got, him and Christine actually have like 3 co-writes or 2 co-writes on this album.
Now, would this be the first album that has outside writers writing with the band? Because I know Eddie Quintella wrote a couple of tracks with
Christine. She was his husband at the time. And then she said, he really didn't have a whole lot to do with this kind of stuff. She's like maybe a word or two. No, idea. Because no, absolutely not. On Mirage, Love in Store was co-written with Jim Recor. Wish You Were Here from Mirage was co-written with Colin Allen. Hold Me was co-written with Robbie Patton with her. Okay. Lindsey and Richard Dashit, co-write a lot of songs as well. Mm-hmm. So not unheard of, but it is unheard of for Lindsey and Christine to co-write. And they co-wrote Mystified, and they co-wrote You and I Part 2,
which was an instrumental at first, right?
Yeah, and then she put the words on it.
Yeah,
and then there's the great You and I Part 1. So when you listen to the deluxe edition, you get this 6-minute,
phenomenal,
beautiful, quirky, poppy.
You know how I felt about Part 2. I was always the stickler for that. Like I always hated that track.
Oh,
you and Johnny loved it. You were like, oh, what? Why? Why do you hate this song? And I'm like, it's just so like skipping through the fields, like kind of like has that. But the Sublime when they put You and I Part 1, which I do love, which was the B-side for Big Love.
Yep.
When that came out, and I love that, and I was so disappointed that wasn't on the album when it came out. But when they put that together as one track, now it flows. Now it makes sense. It's a complete statement,
right?
And it works, and I love it.
Yeah,
It's my favorite. It's one of my favorite tracks. That's not actually on the record itself, but it's the best outtake from.
Really,
From
I'd say Down Endless Street is.
Well, that one too. I always love that.
On that. Oh my god,
yeah.
He's singing. He's not breathy. He's
it's very reminiscent of like the vocals on Mirage, like yeah. I'd like that one too. But
so then we get Christine. And again, everywhere is sugary sweet, mystified sugary sweet, but Little Lies is that's like the Don't Stop. It's like the Think About Me from Tusk. It's like the Hold Me from Mirage. She is, we got to keep saying it. She was the anchor of this band.
Mm-hmm.
Like she could deliver that type of song, no matter what disarray, no matter what trip Lindsey was on, and as great as it would be, not all of it's radio friendly. She was always able to deliver, and Little Lies just sits in the pantheon.
Yeah, it's a great track.
I think.
So it was very. It's a sense of reminiscing, a sense of like I love the video. I always loved the video to that one because it's so almost very painterly, right? It has that effect, and by the way, the whole album evokes for me at this point. I appreciate the artistry of it. The sort of even the album cover, which was a painting apparently hanging in Lindsey's house by what was it, Henri? Yeah. It's like a French painter, but the entire album has that, people equate the sound of this record with, if you look at that painting, it makes perfect sense. I'm no way, an art expert, but people have commented on looking at that painting, listening to this record. There is that connection, the musical equivalent of looking at that painting. It's perfect, apparently. So there's that. I mean, Lindsey, he could be very highbrow in that regard. Like he's just that creative, and things that we probably, didn't understand then and still don't understand, but he knew, so yeah.
Yeah. He just, that song for me, it epitomizes this album. If you had to say what really represents it, it's Little Lies, because they're all on it too. Lindsey's in the background strong. Stevie's in the background strong.
Mm-hmm.
It's great. It's poppy. It's got all the great elements. It's that song. It's always that anchor song that a Fleetwood Mac album needs to have. And it always somehow always seems to be Christine that really kind of puts one down. When the stakes are high, she's able to lay one out there that becomes like the anchor of the album. She does it. Like, Hold Me was the same thing. Think About Me for Tusk, and you make Love and Fun and Don't Stop for, Over My Head for the first album. She just really kind of, like, it makes me smile when I think about that, about how, how underrated she's underrated, but she's overrated.
Mm-hmm.
People give her a lot of respect and they love her, but she's kind of like that anchoring in all the chaos, with Stevie on, not, being incapacitated, and Lindsey kind of, again, pushing the boundaries of pop music, that she, was able to kind of slide in there and say, okay, this is, let's give stuff that's going to sell this record.
Mm-hmm.
They'll listen to all the other stuff. It's going to be there. But here's here's some tunes that are going to sell this for us amongst the mess. Literally amongst the wreckage of Fleetwood Mac, and they were really at their worst. Lindsey didn't want to do this. This was begrudgingly done.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, I wasn't planning. This wasn't in my plans. I was planning on,
Stevie was barely there.
Spring. Yeah,
you could argue that she just basically phoned it in almost.
It was a cameo. Really,
yeah,
it's kind of a cameo by her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then we get to the famous aftermath. The album comes out, a success. Well, what does Fleetwood Mac do? We go on tour. Buckingham says, I'm not doing that. That's not where I'm at right now or anymore. At that time, I'm not gearing up for a tour. I don't want to. And then
they did talk him into it. He did agree, as I recall. He did agree. And then he said,
nope.
He said no. And there's this very famous, it's in McFleetwood's book. Allegedly, he was,
supposedly she went after
physical.
Him.
There was a physical altercation between him and Stevie. Christine
she went after him.
Out there.
Then he then she went after him and they held her back. So then he went to go leave.
Yeah.
And then she came out or something. And then he ended up kind of pushing her against the car or something like that, saying, like she kind of, like that. So it was, tensions were high.
She was like, you broke our hearts, how could you do this, that kind of thing. And it's
she's always been too dramatic. She's always been like, oh, if I could never have kids because Fleetwood Mac would never allow that. It's like, really? Fleetwood Mac has had like 80 members come and go. You think you don't think they're going to survive? Like, oh, we couldn't do that. It's like, you don't think Fleetwood Mac is going to survive?
And Lindsey's doing just fine as a dad,
Yeah, everybody, they survived Christine leaving. Stevie left after Behind the Mask, or
right.
But it was so dramatic. We can't. It's like, yeah, you can, because look at any other band. Eagles replace people.
You can't, but because you don't want to. Just admit it. Just say it.
Because your ego. You're making yourself to be. That's the way she was, and Lindsey was like, you know what? I did this. It's great, but moving on. Doesn't say I'm not going to be in Fleetwood Mac, but I don't want to do a tour.
Mm-hmm.
And then the famous, what I was smiling about from '87 on. Was that it took two people to replace Lindsey Buckingham.
Absolutely. And it just did not fly, man.
Rick Vito and Billy Burnett.
I mean, not taking anything away from them musically. No. I mean, they're both great, good singer. Yeah. I mean, they're Rick Vito, good guitar player.
Brown and
decent.
California guy.
Very different style. Very, didn't have the creative flow, the energy that Lindsey brought to it, and I dare say what made Fleetwood Mac interesting, at least for us, was that
the chemistry,
the chemistry, the quirkiness of his music, and it just became very sort of bland. It was very adult at that point. That's when they became adult contemporary.
Yeah,
with Behind the Mask.
They were committed to the tour by that point. Yeah. So it's like, well, we got to Shanghai a couple of people so that, those guys, we got to say they had a thankless job.
Yeah.
You're going out to see Fleetwood Mac and then there's these two guys on stage that you don't know. If you're a diehard, like people from that were like around in 75 and followed them through rumors and everything. And then all of a sudden,
unless you got your news off the rock stations or watching MTV, which, some people just maybe didn't, you wouldn't have known. And then you're expecting to see. There were probably a lot of Lindsey fans that just didn't get that.
Yeah, and this was the longest lineup too. This is the longest intact lineup. So there are some expectations. I get where Stevie's coming from with that, but
I remember when it was announced that he wasn't touring. I remember Johnny's sister, Margie, was extremely disappointed. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he's not going to be. I'm like, that's
Yeah, I was sitting back gloating. I was so sanctimonious. It was like, I was like, good.
Like,
leave,
good.
And you got to get. I was like, see, I had to get two guys.
And the result,
prove my point,
would be the glorious Out of the Cradle. My alt masterpiece. We need to do that one as well at some point.
Out of the Cradle, and then somewhat. Let's fast forward like 30 years after that. So 2017, 2018, the same thing happens again. They're going to go on tour. Lindsey's like, well, I got some concerns.
Yeah.
All right. Hit the road. Oh, we got to get two people. Let's get the guy from Crowded House and we'll get, Mike Campbell, who plays nothing like, I don't think he's ever played faster than 85 beats per minute in his life in a solo.
But a great guitar player. Great, but not
that.
Not for them. No.
Yeah, not that. Nope. She's trying to recreate the Heartbreakers at that point.
Yeah. Because she can.
Yeah, because
it was more of a trick because she wanted to do that, and I know she wanted to do that because of she was heartbroken over Tom Petty's death.
Yeah. And so it's great. If this is your first entree into Fleetwood Mac, well, welcome to the jungle. It's a crazy thing, but. This kind of 87 would really be the end of them as a creative force, not as a tour. They did tour. I did see them on the dance tour, and I did see them in 2012 or whatever after Christine had left. But this would be like the final statement from them as this kind of incarnation. The craziness. It was only going to last for so long.
Right.
They always had the best of intentions, and they always, weathered the drama. I mean, now the drama is bigger than the music, unfortunately.
Yeah, it is. That's
the
the culture.
Yeah, the legend is outshining the music.
Yeah.
If hopefully that means people go check it out. Even if they do it as an oddity, Silver Springs. I mean, that's got like 50 billion views. That video, of her. Oh my God, her. Have you ever seen a guy get torched by his ex-girlfriend on stage? like the comments on YouTube are just brutal. Like he stood there and had to take that from her in front of everybody and look at her in the eye. It's I love it. It's beautiful.
Well, that was, that's go your own way for so long, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there was only so much,
Yeah, but she had like a 20-year timer.
Exactly.
On that unreleased song. So not only was she pissed that song was not on the album, she then got to perform it and then just got to beautifully, again, her redemption. Silver Springs is like the cap on her redemption arc. Her performance of that song.
I need to go back and watch the the video, like to watch the entire show. Because it was great. This is a nice segue into when we do the dance.
Yeah, when we do it. Yeah, they did explode. Fleetwood Mac would explode, right? They put out Behind the Mask, which was had like one song on it. It was a Christine song that was the big hit. Then Stevie leaves, and then they put out an album, oddly enough, called Time.
Becca Bramlett, who was the daughter of Delaney and Bonnie,
which just goes to show Mick Fleetwood,
and Dave Mason, rest in peace. He was a member of Fleetwood Mac.
Goes to show that Fleetwood Mac was going to keep going.
Yeah,
Mick Fleetwood proves the formula. It's I don't care who we have to get. If we have to go to the boardwalk and get a guy a bum off the street, he's going to be. Fleetwood Mac's going to keep going, and I think he probably regretted that.
Yeah.
But that's that's what Fleetwood Mac always was. Fleetwood Mac was about staying power in the face of adversity, and they had adversity from the word go. And they started out as one thing and ended up as another. And there were actually two things that were very beloved. They were a groundbreaking English blues band.
Yeah.
That was groundbreaking at the time when that whole English blues scene was popping up. And then they morphed into
brilliant guitar player named Peter Green, who was,
sadly, Jeremy Spencer, all those guys. That triple guitar attack of early Fleetwood Mac is insane.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
It was insane. Yeah,
it's just very, very, very rich legacy.
Yeah,
that they've cultivated, and truly, if there was one band that you and I have always 100% agreed upon, as our musical tastes, diverge a little bit, but this band has always been part of our friendship. And part of our growing up, and it's. I'm glad to say that it's still intact and in that way, So
it's good to revisit it, and like we had said, when in all the other Fleetwood Mac episodes we would always refer to this album and we would say about how glossy it was, and we would say it in kind of a denigrating way, and then when you go in to listen to it. You
appreciate it's like you pointed out. We know, now we understand the nuances, what the plan was, the mindset. We're at that point where I wouldn't say smarter than we were, but necessarily. But we've grown. We've grown. In a totally appreciating music in such a different way.
Yeah, you can't always be so dogmatic. What you think especially when you're young, is like you really make opinions and then you dig your heels in on them.
That's right.
For better or for worse, there's a lot of hills that we were prepared to die on. Right.
That's right.
Just because
you coming around listening to Drama, Drama, that just shocked the hell out of me, man. I'm like, damn.
I listened to it again the other day. I listen to that thing like once a week at least.
Finally, I'm like, redemption, like I've always wanted you to, but again, but no, it's it's one of the binding, great musical experiences of our
and that's why I love doing this too, because again, it gives me the opportunity at least to relook at something, but again, critically, not just putting it on. You put on your favorite stuff and you just kind of listen to it. But when we do an episode, I really try and give it a reassessment.
We're not just looking at the stuff through rose-colored glasses. We're not looking back and being totally 100% nostalgic about it for that reason. Yeah, you're right. It is
maybe nothing.
It is
changes.
Fresh.
Yeah,
maybe we're right.
But maybe nothing
fresh.
Changes, but maybe.
I think there's always something. I think there's always something to come out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even on albums that I never thought that I liked, even then, that I've grown to appreciate. So it's twofold. It comes, it kind of works its magic in a weird circle.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so, because it's more. We're doing more active listening when we're at least when I'm preparing for it. I don't just put it on and say, oh yeah, I had it on in the back while I was vacuuming. That might be a part of it, but more active listening to the challenge, some of the stuff, and some of the stuff I verify. It's like, yeah, I felt the same way 30 years ago, and I feel that way now. Nothing has changed. Or I feel that way about this, and maybe I feel stronger. Maybe it hits in a different way over time, and I never took the time to reassess it through that lens. I just always listened to it with my 17-year-old ears. So that's why, and we hope. I hope that people enjoy that too as well. Is go listen to it. Is especially if you're younger. Yeah, it's easy to. There's a lot of stuff on TikTok, and there'll be a snippet of a song, and all of a sudden it'll start getting streams on Spotify or whatever. But it was for Fleetwood Mac. It was always a time of creativity, no matter what the lineup was. But when Nicks and Buckingham hit the group, they had acquired somebody that had a thirst for knowledge that he probably didn't even realize that he would ever be able to tap into. But then it's great when someone's given that opportunity and a safe spot to do it, like Tusk, where they just kind of think, all right, let's let him, he's going to do what he's going to do. You get inspiration, right? And you get growth. He then took that to Go Insane, came out on the other side, and then would make pop masterpiece. He would make Out of the Cradle. We wouldn't get Out of the Cradle without the craziness of Go Insane. Right. With all that experimentation and knowledge that he picked up to then be able to refine that into.
He refined it. That's a perfect word.
Put those things into, rein them in and control them. And that's what Go Insane is, literally him out of control. It's just kind of doing whatever weird stuff would hit him, do it, and let me make a song out of it. And then once you have that knowledge, now you can form it and you can shape it like clay and tame it and master it. And that's what he did on Tango. That's why it was so exciting, this album for me, is what was going to be after that crazy experimental album that nobody could put their finger on. What do you do next? You bring that weirdness? Well, he did a little bit. And there's reminiscence of it. If you listen to Caroline, that definitely connects to Go Insane. It connects to that feel.
Yeah.
But he came through that and said, okay, I did that. Now what did I learn? How am I going to apply these tools? That's what I loved about him and Jeff Lynne and just people that do that. They're always on like a quest for knowledge. Brian Wilson, all the great like auteurs, McCartney or anybody. What can I learn? How can I apply it? Then what do I do with it down the road? How do I add it into the mix? Peter Gabriel.
How do you
like Collins, all these artists that learn different instruments and give themselves the freedom to kind of feel their way through.
Sure. Yeah. Things. And they'd be doing things that they never thought they'd be doing years later, right? Stuart Copeland of the Police.
Following it and follow the muse and see where it goes.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you get some head scratching stuff, but then all of a sudden you get
Yeah.
Right? Like like all the weird Gabriel albums that people, oh my God, this is just so quirky, I can't do it. And then all of a sudden, like So blossoms like a flower.
And again, that refinement, that sort of, and making it an album that is both accessible and as experimental as he ever was, because it is something new. but it was a totally
able
different.
to be consumed by the masses. So that's what I love about music, is watching, especially when we do multi albums by artists, even when we do them out of order. I love doing them out of order, actually, because it's much more fun, because we kind of jump back and forth, and we can kind of, helps reassess. But watching the growth of these groups, and watching how they've gotten where they were, where they started, and where they end up, the Beatles are a prime example of that. So this is just one of them. So that, this is, like Eric said, this is out. It's on all the streamers. On Spotify, there's the deluxe edition. So it's got a whole bunch of, like, a whole second album of kind of, most of it's unreleased stuff. Some of it is kind of like demos of some of the stuff, but the large part of it is just songs that just didn't make it. And the throwaway.
Don't worry about the remixes. Stay away from that.
Yeah, there's one. The third disc is all just remixes of Big Love, which
it's just some But at the time,
I don't need 12 minutes of ooh ah.
Right.
You can go down. You can go down to Times Square for that.
Yeah.
Or you could back then. Let's put it that way. Nowadays, Bubblegum Shrimp is down there. So
yeah.
But and any closing? Give us a closing thought on Tango.
Tango, I maybe perhaps still in the if I were to rate it, it still might be my least favorite, but I do appreciate what was done. I do appreciate Lindsey, and again, a stepping stone to something even more creative down the road for him.
Sure.
And they found great success after this record. Stevie went on to do more solo records and have that career. And it just, it was a blessing at the time. It was something that we just ate up, and we're all the better for it. And we just became bigger fans of the group. You don't have to like everything. It's like sometimes it's a misfire. I wouldn't go as far as to say that it's that, but it just, for me, I don't seem to like it as much as people do. I'm really glad that people see something in it.
Sure.
That is not rumors. You know what I mean? Like that there's something about the record that makes them feel good. A lot of comments that are being made is how, like, those songs are just so happy, and they know the songs are cheesy.
Yeah.
They know
this was the album they grew up on. Like, for a lot of kids that were born in the late 70s, and like, well, this came out. I got this when I was 8 or 9 or 10 or 11.
Yeah,
and it's like, I love that album. The lens is always going to be different. I'll echo what you said. I'll call it kind of like a flawed masterpiece, because there were so many things that were going on with it, and there are some issues with it, but they still were able to weather that storm and still circumvent a lot of those issues without you knowing. I mean, if if you read the stories, you're like, yeah, this is kind of a mess, but on its face, if you just listen to it, you're like, okay, it's a solid Fleetwood Mac release. And again, second biggest selling album after Rumors. So, okay.
They did something right.
They take that for what it's worth. They pulled it together, like Fleetwood Mac always does. They, Scotch tape and baling wire, and they pull it together and they get it done.
I think it's an album that it's not a sort of sitting back on your laurels kind of thing. It's when they knew that things were such, in disarray, they did something, that was just so different. And so, maybe, a little bit jarring for us, but perhaps somebody responded to it, and it just, and it is an album of its time, but it certainly wasn't an album that just, that was just faded away into the air, like it's just so bland or anything. I'm grateful for that aspect.
Yeah, as long as it elicits some type of reaction, that's
right. Yeah.
Good. All right. We'll leave it there. They rallied the troops. Lindsey Buckingham really kind of, really steered the ship and made what he could out of it. And again, his production techniques really kind of saved the day, I think, and kind of really, little smoke and mirrors, which is a great thing. Again, like you, I just want to say what you said. You said it's your least favorite, which is fine. Right, but the least favorite, the gap, it just depends on the gap between your most favorite and your least favorite. The gap could be very small.
Yeah,
one album always has to be last. That doesn't mean that the gap can be either really wide or the gap between 1 and 5 could be really small. So it's not necessarily a knock.
No,
that it's your fifth favorite one. It's just, is it fifth by a long shot, or is there a smaller margin in between them? Which then just kind of, makes, puts them closer on even footing, but you have to rank them. So that's going to do it. Let us know how you felt about it. In your podcast app, there is a little button that says fan mail. I checked it. I went to a whole bunch of different podcast things. I went to Sirius XM. I went to Pandora. I checked a whole bunch, and there's the button says fan mail. Hit the fan mail button and send us a message, and we'll reply to you. Let us know what your favorite songs were. Let us know what your favorite Fleetwood Mac album was, what your favorite individual artist from Fleetwood Mac was. Mick Fleetwood did a solo album in between there too. He did a couple. Mick Fleetwood Zoo.
That's right.
Yeah, that song, I think, I'm Not Me, which Lindsey sang lead on, which is really cool. It sounds like a Lindsey Buckingham song. Anyway, hit us up. Hit the fan mail button. Communicate with us. We love to interact with you guys. We love talking music. We love talking movies. So go ahead, and we encourage you to do that. If you made it this far, don't stop here after this episode. Go into the back room. Just walk right by us. We're not going to say anything. And there's tons of episodes back there for you to go check out at your leisure. And then also just give us a follow. That's the only other ask we can do. This way you get a gentle notification when new episodes come out. That's going to do it for this episode. Fleetwood Mac, Tango in the Night, 1987, final album of the classic quintet. And we've got one more Fleetwood Mac studio album to do with the classic quintet. We will get to that in 2027, right?
Mm-hmm.
For Eric, this has been Dean. We will catch you on the flip side.
You've been listening to the 3324 podcast with Dean Legiro and Eric Kuber. You can find us on your favorite podcast provider, so please like, subscribe, and rate to become a part of the 3324 family. Your feedback is important, so make sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook at 3324 podcast and on Twitter at 3324p to join the conversation.